YouTube? How you doing today? We're going to be talking about why MAGA attracts weak, ignorant, unloved, underloved, mainly white men. We're going to talk about how they use their rage, like Big Pharma uses OxyContin to make their followers customers and use them against what good people stand for. And so when toxic trash is being spread in our community, we have to clean it up, even if we had nothing to do with it. That's what good men do. Let's listen. These women were on fire today, so we're going to listen to the I've had it women a little bit. We're going to talk about, again, we're not here to insult. We're here to heal. Just because you've been weak doesn't mean you have to stay weak. Just because you've been ignorant doesn't mean you have to stay ignorant. Just because you've been unloved or underloved doesn't mean that you can't find love. This is the key. But if they teach you this, they can't hook you like Big Pharma. OxyContin and hard drugs will make people feel good in the moment but destroy them over time. That's how MAGA uses rage to attract weak, ignorant, unloved, underloved people to use their followers as customers.
Tanks and all of the bottom feeder parasites surrounding him. They are not going to leave the White House. They are going to sabotage the midterms. They are going to butcher up the Constitution. They are planning. They are machinating. This is real, and everybody needs to wake the fuck up. Listen to Steve Bannon. Listen to this.
Term. So Trump 28, Trump is going to be president 28, and people just ought to get accommodated with that.
So what about the 22nd Amendment?
There's many different alternatives. At the appropriate time, we'll lay out what the plan is, but there's a plan, and President Trump will be the president in 28. We had longer odds in 16 and longer odds in 24 than we got in 28. And President Trump will be the president of the United States, and the country needs him to be president of the United States. We have to finish what we started. And the way we finish it to Trump is a vehicle. I know this will drive you guys crazy, but he's a vehicle of divine providence. He's an instrument. He's very imperfect. He's not churchy, not particularly religious, but he's an instrument of divine will. And you can tell this of how he's pulled this off. We need him for at least one more term, right? And he'll get that in 28.
You're not driving me crazy. I'm really sick.
Okay, I want to stop there. He goes on and on, but basically, this is in one minute clip there. Basically pieces together what we have been talking about on this podcast for a couple of years. And it is this notion of Christian nationalism. We are going to make the United States of America a country for
So that was Steve Bannon saying outright that Trump is going to be president in 2028. Okay? That's why these people need the weak, the ignorant, the unloved. That's why they need them as their followers / customers, because good people who stand for these principles and can't be bullied by the shittiest people in society, the weakest people in society, the most ignorant people in society, people who live by these principles can't be messed with by these people. These are the minority. They have to say things like that, like Steve Bannon saying Trump will be president in 2028 is like Donald Trump Jr. saying Democrats are soy boys. But then he'll never show up to a competition with me, with anything. Neither one of them. They won't debate, they won't have a head-to-head IQ test. If they want to call Democrats weak or soft, they won't show up to any kind of physical competition. Again, not to hurt anybody, but to say, hey, if you want to talk junk and not talk policy, we can settle that. And then we can shake hands and everybody can see who's who. And then we can talk about this stuff. If you need to get a little bit of your rage out and learn your rightful place among real men, we can do that as gentlemen. Okay? But they don't want to do that. They want to sit on the internet and tell you that this McDonald's made pussy neck having sexual assaulting trust funded lifelong con man is going to break the Constitution and stay in the White House. Okay? And that's why when this toxic garbage of lies and incellery, weakness, ignorance, unloved, rage behavior is being spread, it is up to real men and real women to say, we are the majority. These people are in power because they cheat. We're going to fix it. We believe in karma. We believe in justice. Okay? And unfortunately, it takes time. But that's why we're here, because when the young men who MAGA has courted, and they talk about how they court incels and angry young men, those young men changed the last election. And our side has not done a good enough job. And the problem is, it's a lot of their unloved children. Okay? So it's their unloved children lashing out. And people on the left, liberals, have not done a good enough job of saying, the reason that you stay full of rage and anger and you feel like lashing out at people and cruelty makes you feel powerful, but yet somehow it never satisfies you. Somehow you're like, well, when am I finally going to be happy? When am I finally going to look myself in the mirror and feel like a decent human being? They have you hooked like Big Pharma on OxyContin or hard drugs, or MAGA has their angry, rageful followers hooked, I should say. And we can all be brothers or sisters when everybody puts these type of principles over jerseys, like high school kids. Okay, Dennis says, Trump has health issues that may preclude him from a third term. There's a very good chance that Donald Trump will not live to his third term based on his own health, based on what a lot of medical professionals looking at the signs and symptoms that lead them to make that conclusion are saying. That very well could be true. He's obviously unfit is like the highest compliment I could pay him. I mean, that man is disgusting in every way, including his health. He's done it to himself. He has no self-discipline. He embodies weakness, ignorance, and being unloved and hooked on rage like OxyContin. And you stay in this cycle like Big Pharma uses OxyContin to keep their customers, okay? And this OxyContin makes them feel better, but eventually it destroys them. This rage makes these people feel powerful in the short term, but eventually it destroys them. Let's talk a little bit about each one of these: weakness, ignorance, and unloved. Why weak, ignorant, and unloved men rage for MAGA. The weakness: putting on a red hat and being cruel within a gang. It makes weak and broken men feel powerful, like OxyContin makes somebody feel good, however you want to put it, it makes them feel. To perform cruelness with a gang of other hyena type men, it makes them feel powerful. It's an illusion, like the high of a drug that feels good but will destroy you in the long run. Because if you can't stand on your own, you're weak. Okay, the ignorance part. Putting on a red hat and memorizing and parroting propaganda, which is all they do. They watch their programs, the leadership gives them talking points and slogans, and they just repeat them. And when you debunk them and say that's absurd, they just go on to the next one, because what they value is obedience. They don't care about principles, they don't care about facts, they don't care about truth. They care about obedience and loyalty. So that's ignorance. You put on a hat, and without doing any work other than repeating and parroting what you're told, it makes mentally lazy people who do not value integrity feel intelligent. And this is not a safe space for those people. These people want to come and get in the comments, but you don't just get to participate here. This is my channel. This is a place for adults to talk about complex topics with nuance and depth. And anybody who is willing to show their face and debate man to man or man to woman, you can say anything you want within YouTube's terms of service, and I'll give you equal time to me. But you can't come spread this propaganda like toxic trash in my comments when you're afraid to show your face. Because the fact that you're afraid to show your face, and part of this ignorance, you get to feel like you're equal to me, or that you're as strong as me or intelligent as me, or your principles stack up to mine, when you just get to comment, 30 times in my comments while I'm asleep. And it's not true. And that's why you won't, if you were to come and debate face to face, you'd have to have a working memory. You'd have to have a cohesive and be able to communicate a logical argument structure. You'd have to show that you're composed under scrutiny, that you don't just crack like one of these weak, ignorant, unloved little followers who can't take it when you expose what they actually are, which is obedient. Obedient to what they define as beta males. Because we talked about how alpha and beta is a mythological concept they don't understand, but they love to use it, so we talk in their terms. And by the way that they define beta males, their leaders embody everything that they say is beta, and then they're obedient to beta. Okay, so you can't come in the comments and act like you're something you're not on this channel. I'll take it out like the trash. But if you say, hey, I want to debate you, I want to tell you what you are, and how you're this and you're that, cool. I get to look at you and tell you what you are, because I can play on this level, but I'm going to keep coming back and saying we can be brothers and sisters whenever you want to put these principles above a jersey. Because if you are for these principles, I am for you. I am your brother. But if you want to put obedience to rage, to keep you hooked like a drug, like Big Pharma does, their customers, this really isn't for you. This is for people who believe in these principles, to start to understand why these people won't listen to facts, why they repeat lies with no shame, and no sense of hypocrisy or embarrassment, for saying release the files one day and then the next day, oh, the files aren't important. And we just let them, we act stupefied. But it's not stupefying when you understand they're just obedient little boys. They're just trying to be good boys because most of them had terrible fathers, or they didn't have fathers, or they had no positive male role models in their life. And the way that you can prove that is ask any of these young men, why are you afraid to live by these values? If you live by these values, MAGA people, there is somebody in your life who's going to react negatively. Who is that person? Why are you afraid to be strong in front of them? And why are you so obedient to a group who uses your rage to keep you a customer for life? Let's get back into this. Let's get some more work. We'll see what the chat is saying. And this is going to be a pretty quick day today. We've pretty much gone through this. It is what it is. And again, to wrap up, you are not entitled. If you are, a rage-baiting person who doesn't care about truth and you just obediently spread propaganda, you're not going to do it in my comments. I'm going to take it out like the trash. I'm not going to block you. I'm going to say, hey, I'm deleting your comments because they're bullshit. But if you want to come on and debate them live face-to-face, you can say them on my channel. But I'm going to get content out of showing people what these type of people look like in real life, who they really are. They're so embarrassed of who they are that they will not show up to debate live. And when you're too embarrassed of yourself to debate live, you don't get to spread nonsense in my comments. You haven't earned that privilege. This is like a calculus class and you don't have the qualifications to participate. You can listen to the adults talk and hopefully you will learn something, because we're not here to insult, we're here to heal. None of these are permanent destinations. Just because you've been taken into weakness, ignorance, and you've been unloved or underloved doesn't mean you have to stay that way. But if you stay hooked on rage, just like somebody on OxyContin may be like, man, I don't want to stay in this loop. I don't want to stay in this spiral, but the drug keeps them there until they're strong enough, one way or the other, to stop this. And until you are strong enough to stop the rage when you hear me tell the truth about you and you think I'm talking to you, I don't even know you. I know what this template is. I know it's the opposite of the principles that good men live by. And so I also know that if you're in this and you hear my words, you say, ooh, that's me. He's talking about me and it doesn't feel good. You know why it doesn't feel good? Because you know as a human that this is wrong. But you're hooked because it is a drug. And they use it against you as they have just as much money as Big Pharma, okay? Same people. They use their money to keep their followers customers. You are overmatched if you're cut into this. So again, it's not to insult you. This stings because you know it's true. And I'm here to help you do better. And all you have to do is embody these principles and we are brothers. Enough said. That's it. It's that easy. But if you're obedient to rage, if you're obedient to the weakest, slimiest, most disgusting human beings among us, then we are separated like cancer cells are separated from healthy cells. You cannot be cancerous to a good society and expect not to be separated. That's just how it works. If you're a toxic weed, you must be separated from the plants that bear fruit. But if you become a fruit-bearing plant, it's all love. There's nothing to fight about. Okay? So let's get back into these women. I'm going to keep lifting. We can talk about any comments you guys want to have. I've said what I have to say for today. I'm going to get this work in and we're going to get out of here a little bit early today. But yeah, let's listen to the I've Had It ladies were on fire today, so we're going to listen to them a little more.
See, I mean, and these people are all chips in on that. And then they have this dementia-ridden, sick, sexual abuser, screwing porn sex workers while his wife's at home breastfeeding. Y'all all like grabbing by the pussy, hanging out with a pedophile, protecting a pedophile, all this shit, right? So they always talk about this imperfect vehicle. And they really don't give a shit about Trump. Trump doesn't give a shit about them. Their goal, the reason why they need for him to have a third term, and the reason he's even saying that is because we're going to do what we want to do.
That's right.
Y'all play by the rules and you govern incrementally, and that's cute and neat and fun. Democrats, that y'all have so much integrity. We're built different. We're cut different. And they govern that way, and they are breaking this thing. And sadly, I saw a clip with The Handmaid, Amy Coney Barrett, and Brett Baer of Fox News asked her about the 22nd Amendment and a president only serving 2 terms. And she said, that's what it says. You know, she just said, well, that's what it says. She didn't say, well, no, that's unconstitutional. And let me explain why there are 2 terms. There was a president named FDR. And FDR, back in that era, this was before paying taxes were demonized by the Republican Party. And he brought the country out of the Great Depression, and he had social programs for people, and they were wildly popular. When people see the government work for them, they typically like these products and the services that are provided. And FDR was so popular that they had to do this amendment. And ever since FDR, that broke the Republican Party to an extent. And the final nail in the coffin was the black man, Barack Obama. Those 2 things over the course of all of these decades, because Democratic programs are very popular even with Republicans. And so they have used this Christian nationalist weaponization, just like Steve Bannon did right there, to lure in these voters that their only sense of culture and community are their churches, and to demonize Black and brown people, who a lot of white Americans already have a default setting to do so. And they get them to vote a bit against their own economic interests, and they actually get them to champion for millionaires and billionaires, and they get them to champion for against regulations that would actually protect them and their children from harmful chemicals, or whatever it is. They have been wildly successful at this, but this is the final step in this decades-long desire of theirs to create a Christian nationalist state.
Well, and I look at that. Does Trump give a shit about the Constitution? No, he's gone against the Constitution and everything. So the 22nd Amendment to him is immaterial. And we have all these different routes. I think that's why the military is going to be in the cities. That's why we were going to have a National Guard domestic response team. So when he says, hey, we're not having an election, I have to stay president, that there's nobody that can do anything about it. And one thing I want to say, Steve Bannon says he wouldn't have gotten so much done if it wasn't divine intervention. What it is a completely immoral person doing corrupt shit, and never in the history of the United States has anybody been so blatantly corrupt as Donald Trump, and that's why he's getting shit done, because he breaks the law.
All right, so imagine, usually administrations are run by polling. And that is the North Star, is to see how much they can flex or contract what policies they want to do. Listen to Harry Enton here with how unpopular Donald Trump is. And despite this historic, record-breaking unpopularity, the flexing of this authoritarian regime is breathtaking. Play the clip.
Of more expensive fuel and tariff-impacted goods. So let's take a little look at this with Harry Enton to run the numbers on how Americans feel about, well, check in on how Donald Trump is handling the economy so far. How's he doing?
Yeah, my mama was a doctor, and I think she'd look at these numbers and say that Donald Trump's doing absolutely awful in the minds of the American people. What are we talking about? We're talking about new lows for Donald Trump. He's hit new lows for himself. Trump's economic net approval rating hits lows with these pollsters. CNBC, look at this. Down now, minus 13 points on the net approval rating on the economy. You come to this side of the screen, it's minus 19 points among Quinnipiac. And keep in mind, we're talking about hitting record lows for Donald Trump in either his first term, which of course ended back in 2021, or his second term, which is ongoing right now. The bottom line is Donald Trump is at the lowest point ever in either of his terms.
But, okay, So this is something that typically an executive would, when they see this type of polling, they would retreat a little bit. Not this regime. They are a propaganda regime that is constantly admitting we're so popular, everybody likes us, we're such badasses, and this man is so wildly unpopular. That's why you saw the propaganda attack on the No Kings March. But just to kind of explain how depraved and bizarre and WWE this administration is, this is a real ICE recruitment ad featuring Kristi Noem, which in my opinion looks like the cover of a porn. It looks like the thumbnail of a porn.
These weird dudes who are obedient to what they define as beta males, like Donald Trump. Like, this face shot full of Botox. Just Botox everywhere. Just filled up like a balloon. The lip fillers. The fake hair. 5 pounds of makeup. Fake eyelashes. Do you, but like, does that not reek of insecurity? And that's like, if you want to fit into this cult, like, are any real men attracted to this? I don't believe so. I don't know any real men who, I can have a whole squad of people to meet up with Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh and Donald Trump Jr. and Pete Hegseth and Kash Patel, and we can have like a little Olympic Games of Republicans versus Democrats, and nobody on our side is gonna be attracted to this. This lady shot her puppy. She shot her puppy. And look at this, like, this is a clown wearing a costume and makeup saying defend the homeland. She's an immigrant. You're an immigrant unless you're a Native American. I'm an immigrant. They feel cruelty makes weak and broken people feel powerful. And I, in my opinion, am saying that somebody who has to wear this much of a costume, shoot needles in their face every week, shoot needles in their lips every week, spend however long it takes to put 5 pounds of makeup and fake hair on every day, I call that weak and insecure. It's the exact type of person who is susceptible to having their rage used to make them a customer.
Where she's like, this is just insanity. The centering and the highlighting and the main character syndrome that each leader of each department has with promoting themselves in a very Trumpian way. Like, they take his lead, I'm going to be the star. And Kristi Noem has committed more crimes than probably anybody in the administration. And they cannot understand, these people are so morally bankrupt and so depraved and so mentally ill, in my opinion, like sociopathy, psychopathy. They still cannot understand why people would protest them. They think that we all, 7 million people, were paid because they can't understand that people would be good just for the sake of being good. In their mind, we're only going to be good if people pay us to be good. So play this clip.
And then you have the radical left lunatics, and what's that all about? I mean, they're fighting us because we want to stop crime. Where did these people come from? They're paid money. I guess they paid a lot of money, but like I saw that ridiculous march the other day, I say, these people are not representative of our country. And
we outnumber you.
Of course, but many of them are total lowlifes. These are
I'm a lowlife compared to him.
I want to point out here that as a Democrat,
he's
as
made
a
a McDonald's.
progressive
He got a
voter,
pussy neck.
when he calls
He
me
bought
a
his
low
wife.
life, it doesn't bother me. I don't feel the need to bounce into histrionics and frail and flail around. I don't feel the need to do that. But with them, when you criticize them, like when I criticize J.D. Vance for for not condemning racism, when he has an Indian wife and mixed race kids, it is stage 5 meltdown over there because it's true. It's true. So when you criticize them and it's true, then you call them racist, you call them fascist, you call them Nazis, you call them anti-American. They lose their fucking minds because there's truth to it. They can sit here and call us lowlifes. They can sit here and call us woke. They can sit here and call us all of these things. It doesn't fucking matter.
To our bitch ass, weak little sniveling McDonald's maid, sexually assaulting Epstein best friend President Trump. You want to call me a lowlife? You won't even say it to my face. None of you. Call me a lowlife, a Marine. I'm a lowlife because I believe in this. I'm a lowlife, according to Donald Trump, because I believe in this. Okay? But young men, look how all of the people who will go along with that, with their little emojis, cackling like a little bunch of hyenas high on rage, who will never face a lion one-on-one ever. Young men, I just want you to notice how they hide from people like me. And that's not to harm or insult. It's to say, you want to say I'm a lowlife, Donald Trump? Donald Trump Jr., let's debate man to man. Let's compete man to man. You want to say we're low IQ? Let's have a head-to-head IQ test. We're not scared. We would love, instead of you just name-calling and throwing mud from the shadows, from your safe spaces, where you never have to face us directly, we would like to face you directly as gentlemen so that your misguided young people can see who's who. And at this point, people like us have to make channels like this to just put a spotlight on, y'all don't want none. Again, as gentlemen, whatever you want to do, we shake hands after. Because ultimately, we want to be your brothers. But you have this rage where you want to talk, you want to call people who believe in this lowlifes. You want to follow a man made out of McDonald's who can barely walk, who, in my opinion, and many doctors' opinions, doesn't look long for this world, based on his own health and poor choices, lack of self-discipline, and just the stress that living with toxic negativity and rage and hate will do to your body. Okay? He's gonna call United States Marines lowlifes because they believe in these principles so much that they would never identify with this weakness, ignorance, and loneliness. I just say, let the young men see who's who. We are here to compete for the hearts and minds of our future generations, to compete to say, we represent this. What do you even represent other than obedience? And so young men, we want young men to see these are the weak little hyenas who are obedient to garbage. And these are where the real men and women who stand for principles, no matter what jersey represents these principles. Anybody representing these principles are brothers and sisters. And we want the next generation to see who's who. So we're here to compete, however you want to. And we shake hands after and say, cool, let's do it again next week. Until we get meaningful dialogue going on instead of the little third grade mudslinging, the little childish name calling that makes, anonymous people get a little rush of oxytocin or dopamine for when they haven't done anything but move their fingers. And then when they get done and they log off their computer, they put down their phone, they look in the mirror and they're unhappy. And what replaces that unhappiness, like Oxycontin replaces pain? Rage. And MAGA has to keep the rage going in order to keep their followers customers for life. The minute these people learn about truth, love, liberty, peace, unity, prosperity for all, and what the brotherhood and the sisterhood of these people looks like, feels like, lives like, when all of their misguided children understand this and understand that they don't want to be obedient to weakness and ignorance, for what? For what? Usually for money, usually for they don't know anything else socially or culturally. They go to a church and it's easier to just, and these are like always white evangelical Christian churches. Black churches are usually very cool and very much more Christ-like than the white evangelical corrupted churches that these people go to, where they wrap their self in the name of a man who preached love while they preach cruelty. And they call weakness strength. The ignorance, it's these people come to your comments and they want to just repeat lies and propaganda that was, they heard it and now they're repeating it. Their brain hasn't done any work. They haven't thought about it. They haven't fact checked it. They put it in your comments, you prove it false, and they just serve up another one. Not on this channel. And I say, you shouldn't let them do that on your channel either, because you can say, you know what? My channel is like a calculus class for adults who are smart enough and honest enough to understand that they also want to live by these principles. Now, under these principles, we could disagree on all kinds of policy. But if these principles are ultimately what we're all committed to, we're going to be brothers and sisters, and we're going to progress as a society, and we are going to thrive. But these people who want to keep their followers hooked on rage like a hard drug, they're not looking for a society where everybody thrives. They're looking for a society where the people at the top thrive and the people at the bottom serve them. And that's a fundamental difference. And so we're not going to allow people who are too ignorant. And again, weakness, ignorance, being unloved, you don't have to stay in any of those places. We're here to heal you and help you stop being those things, become these things, and be brothers and sisters with real men who will face any of these people anytime in any way. Again, as gentlemen. This is not to hurt anybody. This is not for violence. This is to say, hey, if you have rage, and before we can talk about these principles, you need to get your rage out. That's what a boxing ring with a referee is for. Let's make some content. Let's go live with, just like the reason we have boxing. It's so that there's rules and boundaries, and there's a winner and a loser. And then we can debate. But you guys want to act like you're tough. You want to act like you're intelligent, but only anonymously behind a keyboard. Whether it's Donald Trump Jr., whether it's Donald Trump, whether it's Kash Patel, Pete Hegseth, or any of the little MAGA people who put 30 comments on one of these videos while I'm asleep at night, but refuse to come on and debate live. There has to be a division, and these people can audit our class, they can watch, but you have to earn the right to participate. You don't just get to put anything in the comments here and spread propaganda and lies because some people are too ignorant to care if they're lying. And they're too ignorant to understand if the first thing you come with is disproven, instead of just serving up something else that you were told by the same source, why not stop and consider, wait, I really believe that and they just proved me wrong. What does that mean? What else might I be wrong about? And until, like a drug addict, they're willing to admit that they have a problem, we have to separate ourselves. Because it's counterproductive to go back and forth with people who are only interested in obedience.
And doesn't even remotely trigger me. And I think it's really, really interesting that you have large blocks of the American public that think that championing for universal human rights and for people to make a livable wage and for people to have the in the courts to have due process, that we would have to be paid to stand up for that, for us to stand up for Black and brown people, for us to stand up for members of the LGBTQ plus community, for us to fight for a woman's right to have privacy with their doctor, that we would have to be paid for that we would have to be paid to stand up for many Americans that work 40, 60 hours a week and make chicken shit money, and they can't afford health care and they can't afford child care, and that for us to stand up for those marginalized people, that we would have to be paid, is much more of an indictment on this depraved regime than anything that they do. Anything. They think in order to care about other people, you have to be paid. And that to me is incredibly chilling.
I want to take a minute to thank our sponsor. And today's sponsor is very important.
And adjust their policy based on that. I feel like Donald Trump, he knows he's never leaving. He knows that he's got that spot until he's dead, so he doesn't give a shit. He wants to make as much fucking money as he can, sees as much power. So what the American people think is completely immaterial to him and everybody in this cabinet.
Absolutely, because they are going to rip up the Constitution, starting with Steve Bannon talking about that. You can tell by the way Pam Bondi behaves. And
again, this video started off with Steve Bannon saying that Donald Trump will be the president in 2028. Okay, so they're not hiding what they're trying to do. And they know that they have to cheat to get away with it, but they think that they're going to be able to get away with it. I don't think so. I have somewhere to be today, so I'm only gonna do one set of all these exercises today. We'll see what we get done tomorrow. Tomorrow is college football, so we might not even be here tomorrow. So we might just be chilling, watching college football, doing our workouts while we watch football. Because, we're cleaning up trash while we're doing work every single day. Sometimes you can take a day off and completely let your mind go and know that you did everything you could this week to help reestablish truth, love, liberty, peace, unity, and prosperity in your community, cleaning up the toxic garbage that other people are dumping into it. Okay, so we don't have anything to do with the trash being spread in our community, yet we either live in the muck that they spread or we start cleaning it up. So to wrap up everything today, why weak, ignorant, unloved men rage for MAGA, we're just gonna recap. And again, it's never to insult, it's to heal. You don't have to stay any of those things. You can change. You can become a different person. Who in your life are you afraid to live up to these values in front of? Because if you know somebody who's MAGA, if you are MAGA, if you deal with MAGA people on a daily basis like I do, then you understand that they're driven by some kind of rage, and that the ignorance that leads somebody to think that staying in a rage cycle is going to do something productive is a debilitating form of weakness and ignorance. If you are weak and you put on a red hat, now you get to be in a gang of hyenas and go attack lions, but never face them one-on-one, right? And that's how you know that they're weak. They hide behind anonymous, online accounts. Many of the online accounts that are MAGA are bots. So that's why we say, if you want to participate, you've got to be strong enough to come on and debate your ideas, because otherwise you're not entitled to post propaganda and lies here. We don't believe you. Come on, a live stream and convince us. MAGA appeals to weak people because they can put on a red hat and pretend they're strong. And other weak people who are pretending they're strong will pretend along with them. Just like a den or a house full of drug addicts all pretending that they don't have a problem, MAGA attracts weak men who put on a red hat and pretend they're strong because they're cruel. They think cruelty is strength. And the reason that repels women and they stay full of rage because no independent, no true woman wants to be with somebody who's cruel. Okay? Maybe somebody who's capable of violence or extreme violence but would never use it except to protect someone or themselves or their family. But people who are capable of extreme violence, who've seen extreme violence, want it the least. Because you see in the aftermath of something like that, the humanity of even someone you thought you hated. I don't wish extreme violence on my worst enemy. I will happily jump in a boxing ring with somebody if we can shake hands when it's over. You know, I'll happily have a head-to-head debate or IQ test or workout, you know, face-to-face debate, anything, but it's to shake hands after because I want to be brothers with these people. But in the same way that no matter how much a healthy cell in your body wants to be friends with the cancer cell, if the cancer cell is just insisting on eating and destroying the healthy cells around it, you have to divide them. And that's what a doctor does. A doctor doesn't hate the cancer cells. It simply says, my job is to protect this body, and this must be separated. And when you are weak and you become strong, you would never submit to weak people like Donald Trump. A strong man would never submit to someone like Donald Trump. So you know they're weak the minute that they support a man who said, grab her by the P word. You know, ignorant literally means lack of knowing. So maybe you haven't been taught. Maybe you know people in MAGA and you're trying to debate ideas and beliefs with them, not realizing that they're just obedient. They don't believe or care about anything they argue. That's why they're release the Epstein files one day and the next day they're 100% opposite. The Epstein files no longer matter. How can that happen? The same way a high school football rivalry, nothing is going to make you cheer for the rival team because you're obedient to your school. They're obedient. And so when they present ideas and beliefs, they're simply spreading leaflets of propaganda that their masters have written and told them, go out and spread this. And you open the propaganda, you look at it, and you're like, hey, this is all bullshit. And they're like, whatever, I did my job, I was obedient, I spread the propaganda. And they go on, and it doesn't matter to them. That is ignorance. Because these are people who haven't been taught why truth makes your life better, why truth makes society better. They think that obedience, being ignorant in the name of loyalty, because a lot of them, you know, will start to wonder, man, everything that I've been told by Fox News or Newsmax or OAN, once they start to look into it, is a lie. They're just completely lying to me. And some of them will say, man, it will cause too much friction with my boss or with my social group, my family, my church, my community, if I start standing up for this and questioning the lies and the cruelty. It's just easier for me to be like, you know what? I don't know. Ignorance. Knowledge is truth. Truth is in the daylight. The minute you hide what you really believe, if you're going along with this, but you really believe a lot of it is wrong and you hide it, that's the opposite of truth. And that's why it stays in the dark. As soon as it's true, it's in the light. You're not afraid to say it to your dad, your uncle, your pastor, your boss, anybody. Once it's actually true, it's open. You tell people, you show it. I stand for love. I stand for liberty, peace, unity, and prosperity for all people. And if all of your policies go against these things, I would never support these policies. And these principles come before a jersey. If anybody starts living and representing these principles, we are brothers and sisters, and I don't even care what jersey you wear. If my side turns against these principles, I no longer wear that jersey because the principles come first. If you go by principles first, you could never change your mind on something like release the Epstein files. That's why the Democrats are saying, yeah, there's Democrats' name on it and we want to know who. Release the files. They're voting for it. The Republicans have shut down our government to protect PDFs, and that can only be done when your base is weak and ignorant. The unloved, underloved is how people come to become weak and ignorant. Children who have love in their life, real love, authentic, true love, become strong and intelligent. And it's not somebody's fault if they've been unloved or underloved. It's not to insult. It's to say, understand if this is you, that's not your fault, and you don't have to stay trapped in the results of that bad circumstance. And if you start off being unloved or underloved, and that makes someone weak and ignorant, and the rage that someone feels by living in weakness and ignorance is used by MAGA, like Big Pharma uses OxyContin or a hard drug to turn followers into customers for life. And like OxyContin makes people feel good temporarily, rage makes these rage and cruelty make weak and ignorant people feel powerful and intelligent while they're in their pack of hyenas. But they'll never be caught alone with a lion. And they don't understand that they could be a real man, they could be a lion, they could be part of this brotherhood by representing truth, love, liberty, peace, unity, and prosperity. But that would mean standing up to these people, and that's what they can't do, and that's a weakness. But it's not to insult you, it's to say, you're making a choice. And when you embody these things, you will not be unloved anymore. When you live by these values, you will have an abundance of love in your life. But it has to be real. You can't fake it. As soon as you start doing the performative cruelty and hypocrisy and lying, everybody sees the cancer cell. A cancer cell cannot pretend that it's a healthy cell. It's a lie. It's untrue. They're literally incompatible. You have to literally start believing and embodying these things, and you will have an abundance of love in your life. And you'll be able to look yourself in the mirror. You'll be able to look your brother and sister humans in the eye and know that you're doing your best as a human being instead of being led around as a customer by your worst. If you want to come on and debate your ideas, if you want to tell me that I'm completely wrong and argue the opposite, please do so. We're not going to let these people, you're not entitled to comment here. This channel is not a safe space for you. This channel is not somewhere you can come and spread lies and propaganda unless you have the strength to do it face to face. It could be on camera, it can be in person. We both get equal time, no interruptions for either side, and you can say anything that doesn't violate YouTube's terms of service. So you can say anything to me, whatever, but you can't type it in the comments anonymously because you haven't proven the qualifications to participate in this group. If you want to talk about policies, if you want to talk about these principles, then your comments are welcome. But you can't come here and sling mud. You know, just like I can't come in your house and dump my trash. You're not going to dump propaganda in here that's lies and do what's called the Gish Gallop. Because if I start to debate these people and prove the first thing that they say wrong in the comments, they respond like manically with 20 or 30 lies. And that's called the Gish Gallop. And that's what weak and ignorant people are taught to do to make the conversation go away. But you can't do that here. You cannot. I wish that other platforms, pages, channels would get on the same thing and say, free speech means you can go outside and say whatever you want. It doesn't mean you can come in my house and talk shit. It doesn't, and that's what our channels are. That's what our pages are. So I would encourage all of you to, it's not censoring speech when you're teaching a calculus class and you don't allow a 5th grader to come in and roll around in the floor and play their iPad at full volume while you're teaching calculus. That's not censoring that child's free speech. That's saying this is not a room for children. This is not somewhere you can come and play. If you want to participate here in this class, you have to do so in terms of what we're talking about in this class, which is cleaning up the trash of society that these people have spread. We didn't do it. We didn't spread it. A lot of their kids are the ones growing up, getting newly hooked on this rage because these people tend to be terrible parents. And on this side, we have to put an olive branch out and say, if you're tired of the rage, if you know you have a problem, if you're tired of the fact that in your heart you believe in values like this, but you can't express those because you are beholden, you are obedient to weak men who will use mafia-type tactics, and that could be a dad cutting off his kid because they embody these principles. That's mafia-type tactics. That's saying, if you don't do what I tell you, I'm gonna inflict economic harm on you or worse. That's your sign, young men. The fact that these people are repelled by these principles is the same way that white blood cells and cancer cells are repelled. The difference between us as humans is all of this is a choice. And the minute somebody chooses to live by higher principles, they become a brother or a sister to the main body of humanity. And there's nothing, now we can disagree about policies all day long and shake hands still as brothers and agree to let democracy settle our differences if this is what we're all serving. If we're all putting truth first, if we're all putting love first, liberty, the same liberty for you and your kids that I want for me and my family. Peace, we all want peace. Violence only comes when you violate people's liberty. When you violate somebody's liberty, you start dumping toxic chemicals in their water, you put your hands on them, you put your hands on their life, you tell them who they can and can't be. When they're being peaceful, that's when peace goes away. That's why we have conflict right now, is we have an administration who wants to take away the liberty of decent people. Unity just means we all agree on these principles and democracy to settle our differences. It doesn't mean we're all the same. It doesn't mean we're homogenous. It means we agree on the main thing. Prosperity is what happens when you have a majority of humanity operating on higher principles instead of rage. It's prosperity in every area of society when the majority of society puts these principles first.